Hi, I'm Coach Corey Wayne, and this is my video coaching newsletter. And the topic of today's newsletter is going to be, I acted needy and like her way more than she likes me. What now? Well, I've got to email. This guy is 25 years old, and he says he always had a problem in the past with acting too needy, and he says he read 3% Man, he says a number of times a few years ago. And then so he got involved with this hot bartender that he started dating, and then he admits he just kind of reverted back to his old ways because he never really took the time. Because it's one thing, you got to read the material and get it into your mind, but the most important thing is you got to go out and practice it. And until you practice it, you're not going to really get better. It's kind of the equivalent of Tom Brady going to training camp, getting the playbook and going, "Great, I'll see you the first game, coach," without any kind of practice or running the plays or working out with the new players that are on the team or what have you. So repetition is a mother of skill. As Aristotle said, excellence is not a singular act. It is a habit. You are what you do repeatedly. And so the important thing is, yes, you got to read the book 10 to 15 times. But most importantly, you got to apply it, because it's in applying it that you get experience, but most importantly, you see that what I talk about in the book actually works in the real world. That is what builds your confidence. And then when you come across a girl that you really like, you don't screw it up like this particular guy did, because he says a number of times. That tells me he probably thumbed through it once or twice, didn't really take it seriously. He figures, hey, I'm a good student, I'm smart, things are already going better, I got this. So guys will see a dramatic improvement when they start applying my book, even after reading it a couple of times, and they get a little cocky. And as the old saying goes, pride cometh before the fall. And so I was the same way, and I wrote about this in 3% Man when I first started learning, like really things were clicking and connecting the dots. I got cocky. I mean, this was back way in the day, even back when I was getting coached myself from Doc Love. And it's like things were starting to click. It's like I started having all the success, and I was like, finally, I've arrived. I got it. I don't need to learn the material anymore. I totally got this. And then what happened was, I remember like 90, 120 days later, after this girl I had gotten involved with, which I wrote about in the book, it's like I started reverting back to the old ways as well, because I really liked this girl. And it's easy to act properly when you don't really care one way or another, but when you really like the girl, your behavior changes. You start being extra nice because you're worried about losing the girl, because you really like her more than all the others that you've come across at that point. So it gets infinitely harder to do the right thing if you haven't taken time to learn the material and practice when you meet a girl that knocks your socks off, as you're going to see with this particular guy. So with that said, let's go through his email so we can avoid these mistakes. And as Confucius said, success depends upon prior preparation. Without said preparation, there is sure to be failure. So he says, hi, Corey, my name is Bob, and I'm 25 years old, and I've read your book a number of times a few years ago, and only recently read it another time and have started watching hours of your videos a day. So he cherry-picked, he probably thumbed through it a few years ago. It dramatically improved his pickup and seduction experiences, and so he probably figured, I got it. So notice what he says next. He says, I thought I was confident in the material, but now I know I need to read it many more times because I found a girl I really like, and that's the problem. He intended to put her on a pedestal because he liked her more than all others. He feared losing her. And when you fear losing someone, you develop an attachment. And as the Master Yoda said, attachment leads to suffering. He says, and I went back to my old needy ways and potentially screwed it up. So like in these cases, as you know, again, I wrote about this in the book. It's like, you know, if a girl is really hot, really into you, like her attraction level on a scale of 1 to 10 is like a 7 or 8 right away, and then you act needy for a couple of weeks in a row and her interest drops, or maybe you even get friend zone, or she's dating other guys and you're only a few weeks into it, so you can't expect her to really be looking at you as a serious option, then you'll notice that she starts backing off, and instead of being excited about making a date with you, she always has something else. Oh, darn it. Oh, work's crazy. Just so busy lately. Oh, I have to look at my schedule. I'll have to get back to you. Or I'm confused right now, or I'm not looking to date seriously. You get things like that. And so when you hear those things, it's not good. And so you have to back off. And so what happens is when a guy acts needy, he basically treats the girl like he needs an attaboy from his mommy, like he needs a little pet on the head to say, you're a good little boy. And when women don't want to be your mommy, they want you to be their hero. They want you to be the guy that they look up to, respect, and admire, a man that can lead, and they will happily follow because he makes them feel so safe and comfortable. And when you start going to a girl that you really like and treating her like your mommy and your therapist, and like you need constant attention and hugs because you didn't get enough in your family growing up, it's going to turn her stomach. Because if you're supposed to be the confident one, the one that she can lean on, and you're basically treating her like your mommy, it's going to instantly turn any woman off and disgust her. And like I said, I wrote about this exact type of scenario that this guy is going through in my book that I went through with my girlfriend that had the young daughter when we first started dating, who's all grown up and almost, a couple more years, she's going to be 30. And she's got 2 babies of her own. It's like, wow. Time flies. It waits for no one. The sands are flowing through the hourglass. So, back to our story here. He says, I met her at a local bar, or in a local bar and grill, as she was the hot bartender, and I started hitting on her and got her number. So, he probably spent enough time to learn the pickup and seduction stuff that was in the book, but nothing really beyond the dating and the courtship stuff, because that's where he runs into trouble. He says things were going well, and she was showing high levels of attraction while we were together, even though she really never texted much, if at all, between dates. Well, typically that's normal in the first 2, 3, 4 weeks of dating until you guys start sleeping together and having sex. And that's why you should just be doing once a week type of dates, just to see how she goes. Because an insecure lunatic is going to get pissed off and upset that you don't call and text her enough and reveal herself so you can dip early. A woman who's got her shit together and is typically healthy is going to react positively to that, whereas she'll start calling or texting or initiating contact because she's going to want to see you more than a week, especially after you guys become intimate. So that's the normal process and the normal progression. But typically guys like this, she was really into him at first. He started calling and texting too much and trying to rush things, and because deep down he's driven by fear that he won't be loved. Which we have, remember, we all have 2 primary fears: fear that we won't be loved and fear that we're not enough. In other words, fear that we don't have what it takes. And so if you're driven by those fears and you don't even realize that tape is playing in your head, it's understandable. When you don't think you're good enough, you're going to constantly be looking, because you expect her to disappear on you, especially if your experience has always been every time you meet a girl you really like, she disappears after a few weeks or a month or so, and you never really get a straight answer as to why she was really into you at first and then wasn't later. And almost 100% of women can't explain it either. They don't understand it. All they know is it's what they feel. And so in order to avoid that, you've got to go slightly slower than she does. And it's obvious this guy started going faster than she was, which causes him to start acting like the girl. So, and that ruins the sexual polarity. And the more it gets closer to 50-50 in the pursuit, the more her feelings become like platonic. And she just doesn't feel an urge to see you or spend time with you, and may even be thinking that she's going to friend zone you, because she's just not getting turned on, because you're not giving off enough of that leadership energy and you're not expressing that confidence. And most guys, when it starts to happen and they start to backslide, it's like getting into a flat spin in a plane. It's very hard to get out of. And that's where this guy is now, because now he's emotionally wrapped up and he's in the middle of this and he doesn't know the material and he never took the time to really practice it. And since he really cares, he's going to tend to fall under the illusion of action and do too much. Call too much, text too much, get upset at her, constantly trying to find out where he stands with her, basically acting like a chick. And you'll see that in a second here. He says things were going well and she was showing high levels of attraction when we were together, even though she never texted much. And so this is where he just starts to make it worse, because this is a guy seeking her attention and validation. And if he knew the book, he'd understand that relationships and commitments and relationship and dating labels, boyfriend, girlfriend, all that, that's just all feminine energy. This is all the woman's department. And almost 100% of the guys bring this stuff up way too early, too soon, before the woman is emotionally ready and she's feeling like she's in the same place. But because he didn't know the book, he didn't really know what to look for. He was only focused on his high interest in her and not really paying attention that she wasn't reciprocating as much. Just like he said, she wasn't texting as much. And so instead of recognizing she's not texting as much because her interest is low, he's thinking, I'm going to use logic and reason to talk her into texting me more. And that way I'll feel better about myself. In other words, this is more attention-seeking behavior. In other words, he wants more, Mommy, I did good. Pat me on the head, please. After maybe our 6th date, we were pillow talking, and I asked her, so, are you just not much of a texter? And she said, no, I've never really been a big texter in any of my past relationships. I took this at face value and continued making dates and hooking up. I really like this girl. We know. You like her too much. You got her on a pedestal. And you're drooling all over her. And so when you say something like that to her, you're just not much of a texter, you're basically saying, Mommy, why don't you pay more attention to me? I feel like you don't like me or you don't care. Oh, I'm so sad. This is unattractive, dude. Totally unattractive. This is the opposite of what the book teaches you to do. So notice what he does. He says, I really like this girl and was telling my friends about her, and I stupidly let my friends talk me into asking her to be my girlfriend. They're like, you better lock her down. Put a ring on it. Somebody's going to take her from you. Because they've all seen the same movie and TV shows that teach that that's what men are supposed to do. Better lock her down, because obviously all of his friends are driven by fear as well. And again, this is the exact opposite of what the book instructs, but because he half-assed it and didn't bother learning the material, he's getting emotionally burned. How does that feel? How does the rejection feel? It sucks. And that pain is what causes you to make changes, even though, albeit so slowly. He says, I did it at the end of an intimate date and she was taken aback. Yeah. But said that she wanted to be, but I had to meet her family first. And the guy goes, I got to meet her family first and then she'll be my girlfriend. Aha! Perfect. So I got a chance. She was taken aback because it was inappropriate, because the reality is she wasn't feeling it. And if we take a step back and we bottom line our actions, instead of, hell yeah, I'm so glad. I wish you would have asked me sooner. Instead, she's like, she was taken aback. I want you to be my family first. She's stalling, buying time. Like, oh, what do I do? Okay, I don't have to commit to it right now. And the reason she doesn't want to commit to it because she wasn't feeling it. Because more than likely, hey, she's a hot bartender and she's probably got other guys she's dating and seeing. And this dude that wrote the email is just one of the guys she's probably hooking up with or dating. That's the way it is. Hot bartender in a room or a bar full of thirsty dudes. It's like, you're not the only guy that's hitting on her, bro. But when you act needy and neurotic like this, you chase her into the arms of another guy, which, it sounds like you're doing a good job of that. He says, this was about a month ago, and there is still no sign of me meeting her family. Oh, darn it, I still haven't met the family yet, and I can't lock her down. It's like, it's a stall tactic. That's what it was. She didn't meet my family. You get bamboozled when you don't know the book. It's like you didn't know what to look for. You got to meet my family first. A month later, it's like, oh yeah, things are crazy with their schedule. I've talked to him about it. Well, we'll get around to that. She doesn't care. If she was like, oh my God, thankfully he asked me to be his girlfriend, she would have been all over that. But the point being is her reaction included a stall tactic. So bottom line, she doesn't want to be your girlfriend. That's what happened. That's the reality. You're acting like a chick and you're turning her off with the constant need for attention and approval and attaboys and treating her like your mommy. It's unattractive. Just like he said, she was taken aback. It was like, girlfriend? Like, what? She's probably thinking, man, she's sleeping with 3 other dudes probably. Maybe. I don't know. It's a good chance that she is. Because you ain't that big a priority to her as much as you're already telling your friends. Your friends like, lock her down. It's like, you should stop asking guys that don't understand women for advice, especially when you have the answers in your hand. But it's much easier to ask your friends that don't know what the hell they're doing and then blame them later. And then you don't have to have any responsibility for it. He says, we still see each other about once a week, and she's always very touchy, talkative, and affectionate when we hang out, and the sex is amazing. Well, so you're still in the running. Her texting is still sporadic and takes an hour and sometimes days to reply. If she's taking days to reply to you, you're a very low priority. You're just one of the guys she's fucking. Sorry. I know it's not what you want to hear, but that's obvious. You're not that important to her. And so if a girl takes days to reply, I wouldn't be trying to set a date 1 or 2 days in the future. I'd be setting a date for a week in the future. He says, I match and mirror this behavior to try and not over-pursue, but it can make planning dates difficult. You got to recognize, dude, her interest is low. You might be a 5. She might be a 5 or a 6 towards you. I would say if I was a betting man, it's probably a solid 5. I still let her reach out to me first, and she often says something like, hi, how are you? With a little smiley face. He says, I reply, and we'll go back and forth for a couple of messages before saying, I'd love to see you. What's your availability like this week? Well, the phone's for setting dates, and all this bullshit chit-chat, we send a few messages, it's not necessary. If she reaches out, she'll be like, hi, how are you? It's like, hey, you, I'd love to see you. What's your schedule like? Boom. Go right in. What's your schedule like? I want to see you. Instead of, oh, I'm doing great. How are you? Oh, that's nice. Somebody's dog took a shit in my front lawn and I stepped in it the other day and it oozed in between my toes and it wasn't a very good feeling. But how's your day going? Oh, by the way, what's your schedule like? I want to get together for a date. I'm being kind of a smartass, but that's kind of probably the context of the vibe of the pointless conversation he's having. It's just be direct and decisive and get to the point. Like the book says, if she reaches out, assume she wants to see you and make a date. You don't need to send 4 or 5 nice texts back and forth. It's totally unnecessary. He says this gets tough because we are replying to each other 8 hours or even once a day, and this can make planning a date for later in the week difficult. Again, plan it for next week. Plan it a week and a half in advance, or 2 weeks even. When it takes 3 or 4 days of texting to make the date, yeah, we'll cut out the bullshit text, but you also got to recognize, dude, her interest is low. You got her on a pedestal. You're trying to lock her down to a commitment, and you're just like an occasional fuck buddy, occasional friends with benefits to her, and probably, quite frankly, one of the dudes that she's sleeping with. He says, what should I do? You should back off. You're still pursuing too much. You're still focused on her, and you should also still be dating other women so you can improve your skills, and you should be reading the book 10 to 15 times, dude. Put it on 2-speed. While you follow along with a digital physical copy, you can get through it in under 4 hours. If you're a serious student or if you really enjoy the blue balls, then just keep doing what you're doing. You're doing great. He says, should I call her when she texts me and reaches out to get conclusions faster? That's your whole problem. You're trying to speed things up. And she can feel it. She can sense that. She can smell your desperation. And it's unattractive. If it was me, I would not initiate any contact at all. And just set dates, and set dates in the future, a week and a half in the future, especially if she's slow rolling you and taking a day or 2 to reply. If a woman's taking 24 hours or more to reply to you, her interest is super low. You're barely hanging on by your fingernails. I would say you're barely a 5 on a scale of 1 to 10 as far as attraction from the book in her eyes towards you. Should I address the relationship thing by saying something like, let's not complicate things. Let's just continue having fun. No, because the only reason you're trying to say that is you're trying to communicate to her, hey, I'm not needy like you thought I was. It's unnecessary. Your actions and your vibe have already spoken for you, dude. And again, this is more of the illusion of action. What can I do to make her like me more? It's like, back off, do less. Go date other women. Because if you got other women you're dating and sleeping with, especially when you're trying to learn this stuff, you're going to be cockier, you're going to have more swagger, and you're going to be less inclined to jump through your butt and be extra nice when she's slow rolling you on the responses. He says, I can tell her attraction has dropped for me. That's, you know, he's thinking because her attraction's dropped, there's just no reason. It's to just say that in the middle of a sentence because you're thinking it's going to make her like you more, which is basically everything you're doing. What can I say? What can I do to make her like me more? Well, act like a man. Follow what the book teaches. Actually learn what the book teaches and apply it, and have other options, and stop putting this girl on a pedestal. I know I made some big mistakes and I'm ready to be roasted. Yes, you did. Thanks for all your help, Coach. Your work has changed my life for the better. Well, it will dramatically improve it even way beyond anything you've ever experienced if you actually take the time to read it 10 to 15 times and learn it, and you date some other women and have some other choices and other options, because it's obvious you put all your eggs in this basket here and you're thinking, how can I make her my girlfriend? When the way she's acted, it's almost like, how can I let this guy down easy? Maybe the sex is really good and that's why she keeps getting together with you. But if she's reaching out to you first, that's a good sign. But your whole vibe, your whole mindset is you're trying to rush everything. She can sense it. She can feel it. She can smell your desperation. And that's why it's taking excruciatingly slow to get anywhere with her. Because you've, in essence, chased her away and you're still not backing off enough. Because what you have to do is she's got to start to develop a sense of dread and worrying about where she stands with you. And because you still don't back off enough, she never really gets to that point. Remember, it's a scientific fact that women are more attracted to men whose feelings are unclear. And with you constantly trying to lock her down and drooling all over her, she knows where she stands with you. That's why she disappears for a couple of days, because she's probably hanging out with Chad Thundercock. So you got to slow your roll, dude. Even more than you already have. It's not enough, because their interest should be going up as the weeks go by. You shouldn't be 2-3 months into it, and then, you know, even though you're hooking up with this girl, at least you say you're hooking up with this girl, and yet she's taking days to reply to you. When a woman's taking days to reply to you, it shows you're not that important. If she takes a day or two to reply to you, then set a date 2 weeks in the future. Don't set one in a couple of days. But he's desperate to get at least one a week. If you just back off a little bit more, you should start to see better results. So if you got a question or a challenge and you'd like to get my help, go to understandingrelationships.com, click the products tab at the top of your screen, and book a coaching session with yours truly. Until next time, I will talk to you soon.